All right, guys, welcome to my kitchen, my unfettered kitchen, and we're going to be making a childhood favorite today, chow mein casserole. Let's get started. The ingredients you're going to need for this recipe, obviously chow mein noodles. We're going to have chicken with rice soup, cream of mushroom soup. I got the 98% fat free. We're going to need some soy sauce. We're going to use 1.5 pounds of this ground lean turkey. I'm using one of the minute rice cups. The original recipe does have 2 cups of rice, but instead I replaced that with the extra 1/2 pound of ground turkey. And then we have our celery and we have our onion. Let's go. All right, first we need to ground. We need to fry our ground turkey. So got these opened up, put our first pound in, and then we only want 1/2 pound from the other one. We're going to be freezing the other 1/2 pound. So I want to make sure I don't get any extra in here. And we'll get this frying. And of course, while it's cooking, we want to make sure we're using this tool. I can't remember what it's called, but it helps a lot to make sure that your ground beef, ground turkey, whatever, doesn't end up with huge chunks. Next thing up, we need to turn on our oven for about 350. All right, while the ground turkey is doing its thing, we're going to mix together our chicken with rice soup. There's rice that doesn't want to come out. Our cream of mushroom soup. And then we're gonna do our rice. What happened when I made this in the microwave, I set it for a minute and it exploded. So it made a popping noise and it was kind of frightening. And then we're gonna do our soy sauce. So I didn't do a full 1/4 cup. I tried to do a little bit less. The recipe calls for 1/4 cup. I'm kind of wondering if it should be more of a 1/3 cup. I don't want it to be too salty. So we'll kind of do a light mix there, but we don't need to do too much mixing because we're going to be mixing in everything else a bit later. And we're going to put this spoon off to the side. We're going to keep this can because we might need to add some water. And that is where we're at. So I call this chow mein casserole. That's what makes the most sense to me. But if you ever want to go on like Pinterest to find it, there's a bunch of different names that it goes under. So chow mein casserole, Chinese hamburger casserole, ground beef chow mein, mock chow mein, Minnesota hamburger rice hot dish, Minnesota style chow mein, and of course, church cookbook beef oriental recipe. So there's a lot of different versions that have different ingredients in it. I've seen some with like alfalfa sprouts and stuff. It really kind of depends on what you want in it. There was another one that has like water chestnuts in it. And I think the recipe that my mom had may have had that in it. We just never had those in it. This is kind of how I've always made it for myself. I think the biggest switch is just replacing some of the rice with some more beef because I'm trying to get my protein because I had surgery. So it just makes more sense to increase the protein. But yeah, again, if you're ever looking for the recipe on Pinterest, those are some names you can look under just so you can find it. All right, so next up, we're going to be putting in our celery and our onions into our hamburger mix so they can saute and soften up a little bit. We're going to use the can, to get some water. I'm not going to put a ton in there, but just enough to make it a little bit. There, that's not a full can, but close. Or not a half can, sorry. We're going to put this in here. Good thing we washed our hands. And our onions. And I'm just going to tell you, I need to look at you. I don't normally cook with onions. I have always been not excited about onions, but I feel like as I'm getting older, I don't mind them as much. The recipe actually calls for a whole onion. This is about maybe a third of an onion, maybe a fourth of an onion. But I just can't commit to a whole onion at this point. But I'm hoping at some point, maybe, well, I'm not hoping, it's just it is what it is. But we're gonna get our onions in there. And I'm not touching the onions again. Alright, so now we're gonna mix this in together and try to get it sauteed a little bit. And it's gonna take a little bit just because there's so much of it. Kind of wishing I would have used a different pan, but this is the biggest pan that I had for this. So it's gonna take a little bit. So just make sure to keep stirring it so you can get some liquid on it and saute all the things. But as it cooks in the mixture too, it's gonna cook through and become a lot softer too. So as we're stirring, gonna just kind of talk about why this recipe is something that brings back a lot of memories. Reminds me of my childhood. I remember when we had this at our house, like it was a big deal to us. It was just one of those things that we really enjoyed eating. And I've been trying to find other recipes that can kind of exude the same feeling. And if there's ways I can make it a little more protein heavy. And I really like this one, and I'm glad that there's options for the soups to be 98% fat free. I think the chicken with rice has another option that may be lower sodium or something like that. I did not see it until after I'd purchased the chicken with rice. So I think next time I'll probably end up getting the lower sodium, lower whatever option it is. But and I'm proud of myself for getting an onion, like just buying an onion, because that's not I don't buy onions. But this is a childhood favorite for sure. So other ones I would love to do is we used to have pork chops and rice. I love the pork chops, but I think the rice was my favorite part of it. So I'm trying to figure out how to make that recipe, and then what I can do maybe a little differently, because I still want to have the rice, but maybe just, I don't know, do it differently. And there was another one that I've been trying to find. So we had pork chops and rice, and then we had like pork chops and fried rice, or fried pork and rice, I think is what it was called. I found a recipe that looks similar to what I had, and I want to see if I can make that too. So also really want to have tacos. I think one of the biggest things now is like the portion sizes are so small, so I'm not gonna be able to make as much, or I'm gonna make a lot and then have it even more than I normally would. I don't know. It's complicated, but I'm excited to have this week, and I'm glad that I thought about replacing some of the rice with more beef. Not beef. I keep wanting to call it beef. I don't cook with beef. I always cook with ground turkey, but I still want to call it beef. Anyway, so we're gonna let this saute, stir it a little bit, and we need to get this into the oven because I have to clock in to work in like 20 minutes. So gotta go. All right, next step is to mix all of this with that. So we're gonna take this out. We're gonna use a big spoon, start spooning it over to the big bowl. We're gonna try to leave as much water in the pan as possible. Now we gotta mix it all up and we gotta put it in our pan and get it in the oven. All right, putting it in our Pyrex dish for the oven, and we'll put this in at 350 for an hour. I'll see you guys back here in an hour. All right, it is time to check our bake. Ooh, look at that. I think we might be ready to go. All right, it is lunchtime. This has been in the fridge since this morning. I did not have it for breakfast. I didn't eat it when it was hot. Well, I nibbled a little corner, but wanted to have it for lunch. And so I wanted to show you kind of what I do when I make the casseroles and how what my plan is for measuring everything out. So right now it's cold. I'll be heating up a portion in the microwave. But what I plan on doing is, instead of trying to measure out by cups or whatever, all that stuff, I'm just gonna, do it down the middle and get it into 8 sections and just have 1/8 of it, and then top it with chow mein noodles. Couldn't think of the word. So I'm gonna grab this and heat this up, top it with noodles, and we'll have our first bite together. All right, we got it all dished out, all ready to eat. This is about 1/8 of the casserole dish. I may not eat all of it, but that's okay. It's so beautiful. All right, guys, it's time to eat. I've been looking forward to this for like 4 days. Let's take a bite. And being after bariatric surgery, I take a bite and hold off. I think the only thing I would do a little different, and I only was able to not do this because of time, but to cut the onions a little smaller, but so far I haven't noticed anything. But also cut the celery a little smaller, but I love celery, so I think it's just a matter of having enough time to saute, and I didn't have enough time. I ran out of time this morning. I mean, that was a messy bite. I just ran out of time this morning, so, but yeah, love it. All right. This is a chow mein casserole. A little extra protein, a little less rice. I hope you enjoy. Hi guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I appreciate it so much. I would love to hear from you. Please comment below, like, comment, share, do all the YouTube-y things. Supports the channel, and I really appreciate that. And I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.